Hi everyone, my name is Lysandra and I will be your facilitator for this quick guide to the Canadian workplace. You can pause this video and also rewind it if you need to take notes. Let's get started. This quick lesson will give you valuable information about the workplace culture and common values that Canadian employers have. It is meant to help you smoothly transition into your new workplace and secure meaningful employment. We understand that migrating and settling into a new country usually causes uncertainty, perhaps even anxiety, and having to look for work in a new culture probably adds to the anxiety that you already experience. We also understand that the Canadian workplace may be different from what most newcomers are used to, which is why we're bringing this guide to you. We hope to provide you with valuable information that will help you understand the work culture in Canada. And so, in order to start talking about the Canadian workplace, we need to refer to organizational culture. Underneath the surface of an organization, there is a system of shared assumptions, norms, habits, values, and beliefs, which govern how people behave in organizations. That's why we call it company culture. This culture includes the expectations, the experience, the philosophy, and values that hold that company together. This culture is also expressed in the image of the organization, the inner working interactions, and the interactions that the organization has with the outside world. Every organization will have a different culture. It's like their personality. And they also have different written and unwritten rules. And these rules dictate how people work and how they accomplish things as a company. For you as a newcomer, it's important that when you start working, you need to read and learn about the written rules of the company. But you also need to observe in order to learn and become familiar with the unwritten rules. You should also be aware that sometimes the written rules may clash with the unwritten rules. So, because every organization will have a different personality, and it will be up to you to learn that once you start working. In this presentation, we will focus on common values that Canadian employers have in order to help you navigate the culture of your workplace once you get a job. So let's start with 4 tips to guide you as you begin your first job in Canada. And the first tip is work on your intercultural skills. To work on your intercultural skills, you can use the cultural intelligence model. According to David Livermore, author of Leading with Cultural Intelligence, the cultural intelligence model involves 4 capabilities. The first capability is cultural intelligence drive. And drive is your interest and your confidence, basically your desire to learn and to adapt to multicultural situations. The second one is cultural intelligence knowledge, or CQ knowledge. And this is your understanding of how cultures are similar and how they are different. And once you have this understanding, you can build on the similarities. The third is strategy. And CQ strategy is your awareness and your ability to plan for multicultural interactions. And once you have come up with a strategy, you can later on put this strategy into action, which brings me to the 4th capability. And this is your ability to adapt when you're relating with people from other cultures and when you're working in a multicultural environment. So this model, if you use this model at work, It would help you recognize the potential impact of any cultural differences, but it will also help you learn about how to solve cultural issues at work and building strong intercultural relationships and skills. All right, so now let's talk about, that was our first tip. Let's talk about the second tip. And our second tip is know how to work with your Canadian supervisor. As a newcomer, you need to understand how power distance affects workplace interactions and how this unwritten interactions or this unwritten how you can meet these unwritten expectations that employers have. See, one thing that you have to be aware is that Canada is considered a low power distance culture, meaning that in the Canadian workplace, people value equality. They value equality, and there is hierarchy, but hierarchy is established for convenience. So in the Canadian workplace, superiors are always accessible, and managers rely on individual employees and on their teams for their expertise. So in order to know how to work with your Canadian supervisor, you need to work with your supervisor, not so much under your supervisor. Even though in the hierarchy of the organization, you directly report to your supervisor, your mindset should be one of togetherness, because employees and supervisors work together in order to get things done. Also, each employee's or each worker's responsibilities are just as important as the supervisor's job. One thing that you could do to see how well you're doing or how well you're integrating to your new workplace, you can talk to your supervisor and ask them to set up regular meetings as a checkpoint for feedback. Don't forget to ask questions during these feedback sessions because this will help you see what you need to change, what you need to continue doing, okay? And always demonstrate that you are a quick learner, that you are teachable, that you're easy to work with, and that you have a flexible mindset. So remember, work with your supervisor. Now, the second one is use names, not titles. Everyone in the workplace, bosses included, they are addressed by their first name. Using formal titles puts an uncomfortable distance between supervisors and their teams. So you don't have to call your supervisor Mr. Smith. You can address them by their first name. Now, if you meet someone for the first time and you're not sure how to address them, then it's okay to use their last name. You can say, well, it is a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Smith or Mr. Newman. But expect that they will ask you to just call them by their first name. And when they ask you that, then continue to do it. Remember that the Canadian workplace in that regard is pretty much it's more informal than the cultures that you might be used to. So use names, not titles. Third advice is manage your supervisor's expectations. Try to take notice of how fast your supervisor wants you to work. Not just you, but your team. It is usually not a good idea to work any faster or slower than your team. Always think about a situation before you give an answer. Don't say yes or no before you understand what you're being asked to do. And if you're not sure, ask. Always ask questions. There is no stupid question. Never walk away from your manager when you are not sure what he or she is asking you to do or what they want you to do. All right, so all of these tips are part of the know how to work with Canadian supervisors suggestion or tip. So now let's go to our third tip. which is work on your soft skills. Yes, soft skills are very important because finding a job in Canada takes a combination of both technical and soft skills. Every occupation requires a set of industry-specific skills, and workers must possess these skills in order to complete their work. However, a wide range of soft skills are required for all occupations. Soft skills are known as transferable, interpersonal, and personal skills. They are critical to a worker's productivity and success on the job. They enable workers to collaborate, lead, persuade, manage, and work with others. And these types of skills can definitely increase or diminish the value of the technical skills that you bring to the job. So overall, soft skills enhance our employability capacity. They help you in your professional growth, and they can open doors to advancing in an organization. In fact, according to Nick Norani's practical guide to newcomers, this practical guide is titled 9 Soft Skills No Immigrant Should Be Without. I recommend you look it up online and read it. It's going to be very beneficial for you. Norani says that immigrants usually arrive in Canada with 90% technical skills and only 10% soft skills. And they don't realize how big an obstacle this is in their way to finding employment. So in his guide, he refers to the 9 skills that immigrants should have. But for this short lesson, we will refer to only 3 of them. And the first one is presentation skills. As a new immigrant, it can be challenging or even intimidating to present, especially if we have an accent. And very often because of that, immigrants tend to shy away from the spotlight. I know it happened to me when I first started working in the Canadian workplace. In recent surveys, managers have rated the ability to make presentations as a top qualification for employability. So it is important for newcomers to work on their presentation skills. Whether it is a formal presentation to clients or a more casual way of presenting yourself in a meeting or with your colleagues, it will take confidence and also a lot of practice. Practice makes perfect. So we need to practice. You need to practice. Norani states that newcomers who learn the art of presenting and speaking to groups, they inspire confidence, and they're more likely to be seen as prospective leaders. The simple truth is that people who present well in front of others, they are far more likely to succeed at captivating, persuading, and inspiring others. So this is a very important skill that we should work on. So the second one is accepting constructive feedback. And it might be difficult to hear an employer's criticism, but the truth is that no one can be right 100% of the time. Maybe your manager sees something that you are not seeing. In these cases, the best approach is to show that you are willing to listen to the criticism. Remember, it is constructive feedback. It's meant to help you be better and grow. So show that you can listen to it and that you can grow from it. Don't forget to ask questions, because asking questions is a big part of the learning process. There is always something that we can all learn. The third soft skill that Nick Norani talks about is leadership and initiative. And this one is difficult for some newcomers because some newcomers are used to a workplace where the boss tells them what to do. And they want to do their job and they do it well, but they follow orders of their boss. However, in Canada, employers want employees to take initiative. So do not wait for your boss or your colleagues to tell you what to do or to give you more work. If you have finished a task, go ahead and offer to help another colleague. You can also ask your manager or your supervisor how you can help. Asking is good, but even better is if you can ask for specific tasks or projects that you can work on. And do not be afraid of voicing your concerns. Don't be afraid of taking initiative. Take risks. Bring forward an idea, and once you do that, before you do that, we advise that you become familiar, that you understand the culture of your organization. But once you have become familiar with the culture of the organization, then just take the risks and then bring forward an idea. And once you have done it, then champion it. Okay, so take leadership, take initiative. Now that brings me to the fourth tip of this lesson, and that is communicate effectively at work. Paul Holmes, author of Workplace Integration, says that the pillars of Canadian communication style are clarity, coherence, conciseness, and consensus. Let's explain each of them. Clarity. Well, this is the first one. And he says that this is the ability to speak with simple words and the least amount of complexity. Some newcomers may be used to showing their expertise by using complex English sentences when they speak. However, in the Canadian workplace, you should show your expertise in the quality of work that you produce, not on how fancy you can speak. I understand that other cultures value or measure intelligence based on how eloquent you are when you're speaking. And it is okay to be eloquent and be elegant in some situations. But when we are in the workplace, it's actually more helpful if we are able to put complex ideas into simple expressions that everyone can understand. This will actually boost your credibility and make you a more effective communicator. Now, depending on the nature of your job, you can use more complex language with other experts like you, or when you're writing very technical reports. So, clarity is very important for workplace communication. Now, let's see the second pillar of Canadian communication, and that is coherence. And this is the ability to deliver your message in a logical way, starting from the main points. In the Canadian workplace, it is best to communicate to your audience the main point first. That way, they know what they're going to hear and why they need to listen. You basically tell them what you are going to tell them, and then you tell them. This is what we call front loading. And front loading, the main points will make it easier for your audience to follow the logic in your message. There are different styles of communication depending on the culture that you come from. Some cultures tend to be high in context, and others tend to be low in context. The Canadian culture is low in context, meaning that we do not make the assumption that people understand what we are going to say. We try to be clear, we try to be coherent, and we try to go to the point when we are sharing information. So always start from the main point and then break your points down so that people can follow the logic. That brings me to the third pillar of the Canadian communication. And this is conciseness. And conciseness is the ability to get to the point quickly. It's the ability to provide clear and short explanations within the acceptable time. It is important to be concise in work-related communication. Whether it is a presentation where you're giving a presentation or talking one-on-one with a client or with your colleagues, it's important to be concise. Think what you're going to say first and what the listener needs to know. And once you have that information, then you can build your ideas and your sentences around it. Now, a more casual style of conversation or communication, you can use that for, lunchtime conversations, or when you're just talking to your colleagues on the way out, when you're leaving the office. But for workplace communication, work-related communication, try to be concise. Now, then the fourth pillar of Canadian communication, according to Paul Holmes, is consensus. And the way to build consensus is by using speech softeners. Softeners are a linguistic tool that softens the tone of your message, making it sound more inviting, more polite, and respectful. Holmes says that using softeners is similar to playing chess. Your words are the game pieces. You use your words strategically like chess pieces. Softeners in this case are the pawns in the game, and they are usually the first pieces you move forward. For example, instead of saying, "That will not work for our team," use softeners, and it will make it sound something like this: "I am not sure this is the best solution for the team." Paul Holmes, he highlights that the Canadian style is defined by the use of softeners. And so they are used to soften opinions, disagreements, requests, feedback, in order to build a platform for agreement between colleagues. Softeners are not meant to make your opinion sound weak, not at all. They're meant to draw others into the conversation and invite their ideas in order to reach consensus on an issue. To improve your communication and be better or become a better intercultural communicator, you need to adapt to the Canadian communication style, but also keep the style of your first culture and your first language and use it when needed. Be aware of the communication styles present in your workplace, because many of your coworkers from other cultures will use other styles. And sometimes being more direct can help. Depends on the situation. Just remember that no one style works everywhere or every time in a multicultural workplace. You should aim to be intercultural and flexible. This is one of the recommendations provided by Paul Holmes. One of the things that you could do to improve your communication is, once you start working, watch the best best communicators in your organization. Watch what they do, their choice of words, how they speak. Take notes of that and learn from them. And you can even sort of like copy their style until you become more comfortable with it and until it comes naturally for you. The Canadian workplace it's different, or maybe very different from what you're used to, like I said at the beginning. But remember, being flexible, open minded, and having a positive attitude can go a long way when you start your first job in Canada. Until then, continue to learn and prepare yourself, not just to get a job, but to keep the job and to be successful at it. We hope that this presentation has been useful and that you can use this information as you look for employment. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below and we will try to answer it as soon as possible. Thank you so much for your time and all the best in your job search. Have a good day.